Hello everyone! Thank you for visiting our channel. Have you ever experienced such like stories? Michael and Sarah have been married for 4 years. The woman has been trying hard to find her calling for the past couple of years, taking various courses and jumping from one job to another. When her husband told her to calm down and stay at home, or even better, start thinking about children, she resisted and said that his income would definitely not be enough to expand their family, and besides, she wasn't a homebody and didn't particularly want children at the moment. It would be better to live for herself for now and get on her own 2 feet. With all this rushing around, with various courses and jobs, Sarah began to refuse her husband's advances more often. Michael even began to worry that it was his fault. After all, married life relaxes you, and he wasn't in the same shape as when they first met. He delicately asked his wife about the reasons for these rejections, but she attributed it to fatigue and not feeling well. The husband sympathized with his wife and bothered her less, but then she began to withdraw in their everyday communication. Having started a new job, she was almost constantly mentally absorbed in it. But Sarah herself would have been happy to be distracted from work, but for the past few weeks, the same number kept ringing her phone. "Who is this?" her husband asked. "Oh, it's just a new client calling constantly, wanting a special relationship with me. I just ignore her after work hours." "I don't want to get into a conflict," Sarah replied. "Shall I talk to this Jessica and explain the rules of etiquette to her?" Her husband chuckled. No, each client counts for them, so it's better this way," Sarah replied anxiously. Usually she would ignore these calls, write something in response, and then put her phone on airplane mode, so they lived under the constant calls of the persistent client. One day, an old friend of Michael called him in the middle of the week and invited him to his country house for the weekend. He wanted to spend time with his friends, go to the sauna, and have some drinks in the company of men. Michael wasn't a big fan of drinking, but he rarely saw his friends in such a big group, as everyone had work to do. Michael's wife didn't approve of such weekend gatherings, but this time she surprisingly allowed him to go. He suspected something was wrong, especially when the suspicious client called again that evening. Michael came up with a plan. He waited for his wife to leave her phone and go to another room. Then he quickly changed the client's number to his own, but left the name the same. Now, if his wife tried to contact the suspicious client, the message would come to him. The next day, Michael packed his bags and left for the country house with his friend David. On the way, he received a text message that said, "Sweetie, he left. I'm waiting for you. Let's do it this time without Ryan." Michael was devastated. If he had already mentally prepared himself for one of his wife's lovers, he couldn't fathom two. "Well, there you go. Live for yourself," he thought. He showed the message to his friend. "Well, Dave, even though you're not Ryan, it seems fate has brought us together. You'll come with me to my wife," said Michael to his friend, and abruptly turned back towards the house. As the men arrived at the house, Michael's lover was eagerly awaiting his arrival. But when her husband walked through the threshold, not alone, her enthusiasm noticeably faded. She grabbed a towel and began covering her rather revealing lingerie. "And why are you covering yourself, dear Sarah?" The husband spoke sarcastically. "I wrote that it's not Ryan. It's Dave. You can't remember even your friends," he added. "What's going on here, Michael?" the wife asked in a panic. "The revelation of the cuckold, that is me. But you better ask what will happen next," Michael persisted. After a moment of silence from his wife, he answered his own question. "Your relocation will be happening now," he shouted, and walked straight into the bedroom to find his suitcase, still wearing his outdoor shoes. David shook his head and went outside to smoke. Meanwhile, Michael threw his unfaithful wife's belongings into a bag, showing her that she needed to pack here and now. She tried to explain something, but he just threw everything and checked the time before leaving the house to follow his friend outside. They stood by the car and watched as Sarah's silhouette moved restlessly in the apartment windows. After about 10 minutes, she came out of the entrance and handed the keys to Michael. Then she quickly disappeared behind the buildings in search of a taxi. "Will you not see who she will arrive with her belongings?" asked the friend. "Why bother?" The man chuckled. He hardly rejoiced at the surprise of a refugee arriving at his doorstep, and everything turned out just as Michael had said. The wife rushed to her lover, but he didn't expect such quick actions from a married woman. After all, he had it all convenient. She was with her husband. He didn't have to support her, and he could have her over at his place. So when she appeared at his doorstep, he concocted some foolish excuse about how he couldn't see her at the moment. That's when Sarah realized that she wasn't all that special to her lover in her situation. She had to go to her parents, even though it seemed quite embarrassing at her age. To the predictable questions of her parents, she replied that she and her husband had simply had a fight until Michael decided to tell them all the details. After that, all questions to her stopped, and Michael went to celebrate his impending divorce with his friends at his country house. That's the story of their lives. What do you think about this situation? Share your thoughts in the comments. And thank you for listening to the story until the end. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and be sure to like this video, as it will help us promote the channel. All the best.